Hello YouTube. Today I want to talk about unusual artifacts that have been found on the territory of the vast country Russia. Or they were brought to Russia by invaders. Some were purchased by the imperial court from the private collections around the world in 18th century and later. Some of the artifacts are gathering dust in the museums, and no one really thinks about their true purpose and what technologies they were made with or from, also what materials. Perhaps these are products of ancient, highly developed civilizations that have miraculously survived to this day. We have many inconvenient artifacts that do not fit into the frame of the generally accepted concept of the development of human society. And then somebody invents stories about the origin of such artifacts, and then such artifacts disappear. Most likely they find their way to private collections. This is beneficial for the very museums. No explanations would be needed. It is safe for some orthodox scientists, and it suits the authorities as well. In general, as they say, everyone is happy, no worries. Of course, this is not only in Russia, and only the inquisitive mind of individual independent researchers continue to worry and resent the situation, but no one cares about this. So let's look at some of the artifacts. In the summer of 2017, archaeologists discovered the burial of a man and a woman holding hands. It was on the shore of Lake Baikal, where it was discovered at Cape Uyuga. The age of the skeletons is between 4,000 to 5,000 years. But the most amazing thing is that in the eye socket of the male skeleton, there was a ring made of white jade. 3 more mysterious jade rings were lying on his chest. Interestingly, a leather bag with metal tools of unknown purpose was found in the knees area of the skeleton. It is curious that these rings are very different in quality of decoration from primitive artifacts that were found in this grave and in similar burials found on the shores of Lake Baikal. Now, Lake Baikal is known for its mysterious phenomena, and I continuously am trying to elucidate my audience about the underwater humanoids, their strange discoveries, and more in that splendid and enigmatic lake. So add to this very unusual burial with strange objects discovered. Now let's move to the land called Bashkiria in Russia. There was a very mysterious, I should say, stone hammer that was excavated in 2015 in the Sterli Tamak district of Bashkiria. Its age is at least 3,000 years. The discovery was made in the burial mound of Chumarova 1. Interestingly, scientists believe that it was used as a ritual decoration and was not an ordinary hammer. They were led to this idea by its smooth and polished surface. It is curious that in an interview, archaeologists reported that several similar axes have already been found in such burial grounds there. Most likely, this hammer was not processed manually, just like the smooth hole in the middle. According to archaeologists, this is not a working tool, but a symbol of power. Most likely a leader of the tribe or someone from the elite of the Sarmatians wore it on his belt. Let's look at this interesting ethnicity, because I describe their culture and exploits elsewhere in my videos. Originating in the central parts of Eurasian steppe, the Sarmatians were part of the wider Scythian cultures. They started migrating westward around the 4th and 3rd centuries BC, coming to dominate the closely related Scythians by 200 BC. At their greatest reported extent, around 100 BC, These tribes ranged from the Vistula River to the mouth of the Danube and eastward to the Volga River, bordering the shores of the Black and Caspian Seas, as well as the Caucasus to the south. They were tough guys. Their territory, which was known as Sarmatia to the Greco-Roman ethnographers, it corresponded to the western part of Greater Scythia, which included today's central Ukraine, my birthplace too, southeastern Ukraine, southern Russia, Russian Volga, and South Ural regions. Also to the smaller extent, northwestern Balkans and around Moldova. In the 1st century AD, the Sarmatians began encroaching upon the Roman Empire in alliance with the Germanic tribes. In the 3rd century AD, their dominance of the Pontic steppe was broken by the Germanic Goths. We'll speak about these people later too. So, for comparison of the axis, why don't you also look at the Borodino treasure? The Borodinsky treasure, so to say, or another name is Bessarabian treasure, is a find near the village of Borodino in the Ackerman district of the Bessarabian province. Now it's part of the Ukraine, but again, we're speaking about Moldova and all those areas where the Sarmatians existed. Well, it consisted of weapons made of silver, bronze, and other precious metals. The treasure was discovered by local peasants, who handed it over to the police. Since 1923, the treasures have been in the State Historical Museum. Look at those hammers as well, and the precision needed to make them. Okay, and try to put it in the framework of the time they were made at, and who could have made them. Look at the Istrinsky's axis. At the beginning of 2019, archaeologists discovered a necropolis in the Istrinsky district, which is about the necropolis 4.5 thousand years old. It was created around the same time when the pyramid of Cheops was built. Cheops, a pharaoh of Egypt, who ruled in the first half of the Old Kingdom period, 26th century BC. Among other things, amazing axes were found there. Listen, that period in itself, if you look at my videos, was very important in the history of ancient China and the rise of civilizations like Crete, Minoan, Sumer, and others, and all the technology that came along and all the knowledge that came from nowhere. Anyway, amazing axes were found there. They look as they were not created manually. Scientists could not ignore this fact, but they came up with a completely fantastic and even delusional explanation for it. The battle axes are made of gabbro diorite and are an imitation of bronze axes, so accurate that even the protruding edge that forms on the metal axis at the points of contact of the casting mold is simulated. Lovely, but not unexpected, of course. Anyway, gabbro, diorite, and granite are rocks that are similar in terms of how they were produced, but different in terms of composition. They are all intrusive, igneous rocks, but gabbro is the dark/silica poor version, and diorite intermediate between the two, and granite is the felsic version. In the same burial, there are primitive spearheads that are really made by hand, and the difference between them and the supposedly simulated axis is more than obvious. Now, let's go to one of my favorite areas of research, to the Ural Mountains. Okay? In the last century, the scientist Alexander Chuvirov discovered notes from the 18th century, and they were in the city records of the city of Ufa. And the records stated that 200 white slabs covered with strange icons are stored near the village of Chandar. Chuvirov decided to find the stones and organized several expeditions. Only in 1999, one of these mysterious slabs was found. A local resident said that a huge stone has been lying under the porch of his house since the time immemorial. The object was pulled out and taken to the Bashkir University. The dimensions of this stone are 148 centimeters by 106 centimeters. The thickness is 16 centimeters and the weight is about a ton. But the most striking thing about the plate is that a map is depicted on its surface, and a three-dimensional map. Serious research began, during which it was proved that the southern Urals were represented on the Chandar plate, but the terrain was partially different from the modern one. The map shows mountains, rivers, and the Ufa Canyon, which no longer exists today. Moreover, there are images of channels and dams. There are also inscriptions on the slab, which scientists have not been able to decipher. Curiously, the age of the find turned out to be simply fantastic, about 120 million years of age. Well, I want you now to follow me to a very interesting artifact. At the end of the first millennium BC, mysterious people appeared in Meshera, whose cultures archaeologists very conditionally assigned the name Ryazan Oka. Burials of soldiers of this tribe were also found in the Gusevsky district near the village of Parakhino, as well as on Zalkopia. The newcomers, invaders, barbarically destroyed all the local aboriginal population. On the site of ancient settlements, especially the Gorodetsky culture, there were ashes, and near them deep pits filled with the skeletons of hacked people, the elderly and children, men and women. Aggressive invaders took control of a very large territory from the modern region near Moscow to Kasimov and the entire Oka-Klязьма interstream area. According to researchers about the lifestyle of the Ryazan Oka people, they were cattle breeders. The Ryazan Oka tribes, as the researchers call them, belong to the Finnish Ugric people. This is evidenced by their material culture. In the process of ethnogenesis, they could capture part of the Ugric tribes, the ancestors of modern Hungarians. But throughout their almost 1,000-year-old history, they were closely associated with the Germanic tribes of the Goths. At the beginning of the first millennium, the Goths roamed the Don River area, from where they later left for Western Europe. You may want to look up some of my videos about strange discoveries in that area. And the strange underground temples and all, and so forth. Anyway, archaeologists believe that the Ryazan Oka people came to Meshera from the southwest and were in alliance with the Eastern Goths. There are many Gothic elements in the combat equipment of the Ryazan Oka residents. Their harness is copied from the Goths, and the crowns of the ancestral nobility princes repeat the shape of the crown of the Gothic kings. The material monuments of this culture are represented by ground burial mounds, which number basically hundreds of burials. Now, there is a curious exhibit in the Historical Museum of Moscow, which for some reason doesn't cause much excitement, although it is amazing. This incredible iron disc belongs to the culture of the Ryazan Oka burial grounds, which existed approximately at the beginning of our era on the territory of Central Russia, along the banks of the Oka and in the upper reaches of the Volga. Pay attention to the smooth concentric circles on the entire surface of this disc. There is no description of this artifact because historians cannot come up with an acceptable explanation for it. Surprisingly, it is very similar to the mysterious Antikythera or Antikythera mechanism found at the beginning of the 20th century of the coast of Greece, unless it was originally located in ancient Britain. And I'm speaking about the museum artifact that was found in Russia. And maybe this artifact was related to ancient British mysteries. And it arrived in Russia because of the Roman Empire. You see numerous finds, Roman swords, coins, helmets, on the territory of the Middle Oka region. There were objects related to the Roman Empire, and it indicates that the soldiers of the Ryazan Oka people served in the Roman army in the auxiliaries detachments that consisted of foreigners, basically. One of these detachments was located in the British Isles. According to the famous French linguist Georges Dumézil, it was the Sarmatian auxiliaries who gave the British the myth of the magic sword from the lake, which formed the basis of the legend of King Arthur. The same motif is often found in folk legends of the Shilovsky district of the Ryazan region. What if the ancient Sarmatian mercenaries brought the mysterious iron disc from the British Isles, and it was a Druid artifact, perchance? Serious research could shed the light, but an archaeological sensation of the beginning of the 20th century is also connected with the Ryazan Oka people. It was then that famous Russian archaeologist Vasily Karatsev found a pot with mysterious signs on the Alekhanovskaya dune. Today, the number of such finds is already significant. However, it is not known to this day what it is: writing, calendar signs, or generic tamga. A tamga is an abstract seal or a stamp used by Eurasian nomads and by cultures influenced by them. The tamga was normally the emblem of a particular tribe, clan, or family. Unfortunately, we cannot read them. Most likely this is a Proto-Germanic runic letter, which records local words. However, there are parallels to mysterious signs in ethnographic practice. For example, signs on houses that have been preserved on the territory of the Shilovsky district to this day. So basically, you have this cool artifact made with precision technology, which I don't think the Gothic tribes or the Roman army was known for, but ancient Britain and the Druids and mysteries allocated to them, who knows. Let's move on. Let's talk about a very interesting pendant. In the historical museum, a mysterious pendant is kept in Russia. Its description says, the pendant is a cylinder, middle to end of the 4th century BC. It was discovered in the Krasnodar region, in the village of Senaya of the Temryuk district. The material is gold and stone. Size, length of the cylinder with the rim is 4.1 centimeters. Cylinder diameter is 1.5 centimeters. And the height of the shackle is 1.8 centimeters. And that's it. That is, for many years, no one was surprised at how carefully this cylinder was processed, and really, we don't see any explanation as to its purpose. Look at that cylinder. Tell me if it could be made by human hands. Now, let's look at a very interesting artifact from Vologda. Years have passed from 2013, when a strange stone object was discovered in the Vologda during the city excavations. it was more like some kind of mechanism, or rather like a part of a mechanism. The size of a matchbox. This artifact immediately attracted the attention of archaeologists and historians. It was found in the cultural layer of the 18th century, but scientists immediately assumed, and not without a reason, that this strange little thing has a much older origin. As the archaeologist Natalia Vasilieva clarified to Russian journalists, the uniqueness of the find was even in the fact that nothing like this was discovered in Vologda, either earlier or later. But here's what's strange. A newspaper article from 2013 says that the mysterious artifact would soon be sent to the laboratory, where researchers would use the most modern tools and devices to determine its exact age and possibly its purpose. And that was the end of the whole thing, as they say. Few people know anything about the mysterious Vologda artifact today. There are more and more rumors, which makes it even more mysterious. One could write that scientists have not found out what it is or how old the artifact is. But rather, in this case, another question comes up. And where is this strange archaeological find today? Because only some photographs remain. That's it. The note from 2013 ended with the fact the laboratory study of the mysterious find would soon be conducted. But there is no later information about the Vologda artifact. Why? Now, let's look at an interesting object from Khabarovsk. As the Khabarovsk newspaper Молодой Дальневосточник reported in 2017, local archaeologists in that Far East area found a metal plate that was dated to the first millennium BC. Scientists say that this type of jewelry is often found in Transbaikalia, or areas beyond Lake Baikal. Academician Derevyanko draws attention to the fact that rock carvings similar to such a plate with teeth are found on the rivers Maya, Toko in Yakutia, and on the Arbi River in the upper Amur region. And if you look at my videos about Yakutia and the Far East, you will find out about other strange discoveries there. Anyway, this plate looks like a part of some ancient mysterious mechanism or a tool. And I bring your attention to my videos about ancient aliens of Yakutia and the Baikal mysteries, including the strange underwater phenomena found there. I think you will find it interesting, and of course I will bring more research as it comes along. There is so much around the Baikal and Yakutia. Now let's look at the earrings. The State Hermitage Museum is a museum of art and culture in St. Petersburg, the largest art museum in the world. It was founded in 1764 by the great Empress Catherine, whom we also called Catherine the Great. The Hermitage contains the famous earrings found in 1853 during excavations on the outskirts of Feodosia. Feodosia is a port and resort, a town of regional significance in Crimea on the Black Sea coast. The earrings represent a complex composition in which there are various ornaments and a tiny chariot driven by the goddess of victory, Nika. Moreover, winged geniuses fly next to the horses, and a warrior stands on the edge of the chariot with a large shield in his hand. It is interesting that it is possible to consider a lot of the smallest details only with magnification. You cannot see them otherwise. You need magnification. The microtechnology is still surprising, especially since scientists have found out that the earrings were created by the ancient Greeks in the 4th century BC. The earrings are made of microscopic grains that can only be seen with a very strong magnifying glass. The best jewelers tried to create something similar, but no one managed to repeat the unique technology of the ancient Greeks, which was called granulation. Granulation is a jewelry manufacturing technique whereby a surface is covered in spherules or granules of precious metal. The technique is thought to have its origins in Sumer about 5,000 years ago. This technique then spread to southern Europe during the Orientalizing period, also with the help of the Phoenicians, who had founded colonies in Sardinia, Sicily, and Spain, and also Near Eastern craftsmen helped push this technology along. The smallest gold grain melted when heated. As a result, the art of the ancient Greeks was recognized as unsurpassed, and all attempts to solve its mystery basically stopped. In the first millennium BC, the technique was used by the Etruscans living in the present-day Italy. Greek craftsmen also employed the technique, but it was the work coming from the Etruria which became famous in part due to the mystery surrounding this process. If you've never heard about the Etruscans and Etruria, why don't you look up this information? It's very interesting people. Now, on to ancient rockets. The State Tretiakov Gallery is an art gallery in Moscow, Russia, the foremost depository of Russian fine art in the world. In the Tretiakov Gallery, there is an old Russian Christian Eastern Orthodox icon of the 16th century, which depicts what shows a mysterious rocket, and it exactly corresponds to modern rockets and shows traces of burning fuel that are visible. Compare with the photos of the launch of modern rockets. Take a look, okay? Very interesting. The things you can find in museums sometimes. I have a few videos about other museums and strange artifacts in Russia. But there's a very interesting museum in Crete about Minoan culture. One day I'll talk about it, because I've studied Crete and its ancient civilization, and there are many more questions than answers, but that's for another time. Anyway, let's move on now to the challenger to the Russian throne and his incredible machine. False Dmitri I was an impostor who pretended to be the son of Ivan the Terrible, Tsar of Russia. False Dmitri ruled Russia for almost a year, until he was killed in 1606. He was a very unusual person, and the reforms he tried to introduce, some of them belong more to the 20th century than to the time when he lived, but we won't go into that. But it's curious that many ancient chronicles told that he had the fame of a sorcerer and created a certain monster which was called Infernal. This is how this monster of false Dmitri was described in the legend of the reign of Tsar Fyodor Ivanovich. It was created around the year of 1620 or so of the 17th century, not that long ago after the events that I've described. Here's what it says. He made a great abyss right against his poles beyond the Moscow River, and set up a great cauldron with pitch, prophesying a future place for himself, and over it he made 3 great terrible copper heads. The teeth in them are iron. There is a rattling and sound inside. By some trick he made like hell's jaws yawn, and the teeth are glued together, and claws like sharp sickles are ready for the larynx is like a flame bursting. Sparks are constantly pouring out of the nostrils. Smoke is sure to come out of the ears. From inside there is a great knocking and rattling, and the fear of the great people who are looking at it is, and the tongue is great hanging. At the end of the tongue is the head of the viper wanting to devour. That is, it's Russian language of the early 17th century. Anyway, that is, it talks about a certain monster that has 3 heads with iron teeth. This monster makes sounds, it opens its mouth from which flames erupt, and its claws are sharp as sickles. That's an impressive military machine. Such miracles, so to say, happened in Russia more than 400 years ago. Such are the mysteries of the country where my ancestors arrived in, whether they wanted to or not, in the 18th century and resided there for centuries. Maybe archaeologists will find some remnants of the technology used to create the battle machine of the false Dmitry I the Pretender. There is more about Russia that I will talk in my future videos. If you like my research, I ask that you please support it. There are links in the description to this video, and I thank those who are supporting. And please subscribe to my videos because there's so much more I want to tell you. I definitely need to speak more in depth about knowledge that one Russian scientist possessed about what could be called ancient aliens, or more likely ancient advanced civilizations, and he was more than a scientist. It's incredible information, and I will make a video about it, but it's not an easy material, so I need to work on it. And of course there are other subjects that could be called paranormal phenomena of Russia and Eurasia that I will come to. Thank you.